We got our first taste of rivalry week on Thanksgiving night with Ole Miss and Mississippi State. We got another helping tonight and throughout the day on Friday. And guess what? I like it. Love rivalry week. One of the great things about college football, for sure. Just took in Florida State. Was everything you could imagine that it would be. Everything we could hope that it would be. Two teams that have no championship aspirations. And in some people's minds that are hyper-focused in the playoff, have nothing to play for, but they are playing for pride. They're playing for pride, pretty much, just for pride. Maybe they're playing for NFL films, tapes that go out there to scouting directors and player personnel directors for NFL teams and playing for each other and playing for their schools and playing for their fans and all of that. So it's great. It's phenomenal. And it was 45-38. Florida State with the victory to finish the season, Seminole fans, 9-3. Florida State finished at 9-3 against what is clearly not even close, the toughest schedule in the ACC. They play in the best division. They played both Florida and they also played LSU at a conference. And they play Miami on the other side, which this year didn't turn out to be much of anything. And let's see, the other non-division game that they took on was who? Was it Georgia Tech? Yes, but they play in the better division with the two difficult non-conference games. And Florida State finishes at 9-3. Couple both questionable / bad calls on the final drive. The first one would be the pass interference call that I initially just thought bad call. Bad call. It was a great defensive play. He broke on the football. He barely bumped the receiver. He was just breathing on him and stretched out with the left hand and broke up the pass. But further review, I'd have to see it a number of times. But on a second look from behind, it appeared as though maybe the defensive back had the right arm and did impede the receiver's progress or ability to catch the football. Second issue on the drive, of course, from a penalty officiating standpoint, was the face mask on Anthony Richardson, which in most cases, I would hate to see a face mask decide the game. However, it did definitely inhibit Anthony Richardson's ability to continue to roll out and find somebody downfield. When you're hits like that for about a second and a half, that's kind of difficult to recover from, and he just threw it to no one in the end zone, and Florida State again wins 45-38. Gators finish 6-6. They will make a bowl game. They will be between them and Missouri, who also finished 6-6 with a win against Arkansas. They will have the final bowl invitations from the SEC, unless our friends at Vandy can pull off another stunner against Tennessee and make it to a bowl game. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We take your calls and we're going to get right to it. Please use the Amazon link in the description section below. So it's Christmas season. Many of you are shopping for Christmas. That's what we do during Christmas season. So please use the Amazon link in the description section. It's in every video we post. All the videos we post here at the Voice of College Football. The Amazon link is right near the top. I'm going to double check and make sure it's at the top. It says Amazon in caps. Grab the link, put it somewhere where you will have it when you do your shopping, and it will connect that Amazon. I'm going to Amazon. I'm going to grab the Voice of College Football link. Help us build and grow the channel. We're going to be here with live post game all throughout the day at the Voice of College Football on the various channels. And even right now, as we speak, our guys Wes and John are over on the Florida State channel with Florida State centric post game. So if you just want to talk FSU football, we will talk it here. Yes, but I'm open to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about concerning this weekend's play, whether that be today or previewing Saturday's matchups. But if you want nothing but Florida State, Florida coverage, go to the FSU channel, check in with Wes and John. And again, post-game throughout the day here at the Voice of College Football on a Saturday. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who do we have?
This is Hunter.
Hunter showing up tonight. Hunter, good to hear from you, man.
Good to hear from you, Mark. I've been kind of MIA lately. I've been extremely busy with work and things like that. So it's good to be
hopefully
back.
Everything's okay.
Yeah, everything's good. Just
Good.
been busy. Great win, big win for Florida State tonight.
Yeah.
I thought it fulfilled my prediction that they would win 9 games. So I'm happy about that. Um, and it's just a good day to be a somewhat of a Knowles fan.
And it's also a good day to be a full Knowles fan.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, my best friend's a big Florida State fan, so I was happy to see them win for him and to see this program moving in the right direction. Um, I've always said that Florida State should be one of the top teams. Every year they should be competing for championships, ACC championships. You know, uh, playoffs, things like that. So, um, but on another note, I'm going to my first Iron Bowl tomorrow, so I'm extremely excited about that.
Sure. That's awesome.
Um, so um, now this is give me your take on this game because it's Auburn, Alabama. It don't matter what the record is of either team. It's always a crazy game. Um,
Well,
so what are we looking at here? Um,
okay. First of all, you struck a nerve a little bit, Hunter. So I understand exactly what you're saying, and I totally get the throw out the records. It's a rivalry. It doesn't matter who's the better team. It doesn't matter what the records are. I understand that old cliche, but you know what? It's not proven. It does matter who the better team is. I guarantee you that if we went through the history of the series, the team with the best record wins at least 80% of the time. It does matter who the best team is. And there have been blowouts and bad games in the series, just like any other rivalry.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm just saying, there's always that aspect of it being a robbery
Yes,
game.
you're right, and I don't mean to jump on you there, and I hope you get that I'm saying that in a good natured way, and I totally get what you're saying, and everybody says it, and there is some truth to it that okay, a rival in particular is dangerous because their season's on the line. This is all they're playing for. We saw it today with Iowa, Nebraska. Nebraska showed up and they won a game, pulled off an upset, all of that. I get it. But if you would go through any series of two rivals, the better team wins just like any other game most of the time. Okay, to your point, we saw last year an Auburn team that was pretty similar to this team, especially after they lost Bo Nix. Last year's Auburn team was substantially better than this one with Bo Nix, but once he got hurt, they were pretty much the same team as what we're seeing this year in terms of quality of play. Bama was somewhat better last year. Obviously, once they proved it in the playoffs in the SEC championship game, but at this stage of the season, I would say this year's Alabama team and last year's Alabama team are pretty comparable, and we saw Auburn really outplay Alabama and should have won the game. But that game was at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and where Auburn does have a history of playing closer and winning more games at home than they do at Bryant-Denny. If we're looking for a way that Auburn can win this game, I think it has to start on the back of Tank Bigsby. I think he has to have a monster game for them to have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. I think this could be this is going to be, it depends on what Alabama team shows up.
Well, if you want to know my opinion, taking the rivalry into account and the great respect I have for this rivalry, which is arguably the greatest in college football, I think Auburn's going to come out and I think they're going to play extremely hard. They've played motivated. They've played with a lot of passion and fire under Cadillac Williams. And I believe that he, knowing the rivalry, knowing what it means, being able to convey that to his players, and all of that's going to work in Auburn's favor for a while. But this is a 3-touchdown point spread, and I think that's pretty accurate. And if anything, I think Alabama is going to cover.
Let's hope so, Mark. Let's hope so. So you just said something there that I got to put you on the spot.
Okay.
What is the greatest rivalry? Ohio State, Michigan, or Alabama and Auburn? Now, of course, you know where I'm gonna land on that, but
yeah, and you know where I'm gonna land, and I'm trying to take my bias out of it, but that's impossible.
Yeah, I think that they're both. I think they're the two best in college football.
Yes,
no doubt.
I
don't think there's any debate. I think they're unique because you have the way that the football culture is in the South going for that rivalry, and you have both Ohio State and Michigan, who have fan bases that I would say are like the South. And so I think they're very comfortable. I think they're pretty even, to be honest with you.
Yeah, to make a few distinctions. So anytime there's a ranking of rivalries, or sometimes they'll take a poll, CBS Sports or somebody will take a poll, the greatest rivalries of all time, and Ohio State and Michigan / Alabama and Auburn will win regardless. One of them will win, and the other one will finish second. And then it's obviously skewed by, and it's impacted by what's going on right now. So if that poll was taken right now, it would be impacted by Ohio State and Michigan being as good as they are, being undefeated teams, playing for a championship, and Alabama and Auburn in particular having a down year. And Auburn really hasn't been a championship caliber team for 5 years, that type of team. So the game, for those people that are just looking for what's going to decide the conference, what's going to impact the playoffs,
to the average fan, yeah. I get what you're saying. If we're looking at it from just a casual fan perspective, it's probably going to be weighed toward Michigan and Ohio State right now. But I think in the South, this game has a lot more implications than let's say, the Ohio State and Michigan rivalry.
Well, when you say it has more implications, yeah, people care about it more because that's where they live. It doesn't have more implications.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I'm about to let you go, but I'm picking Michigan to beat Ohio State.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being wrong from time to time, Hunter. That's okay.
Well, let me give you the reasons why. I think that Michigan has. I think where they're strong in, Ohio State's defense is kind of susceptible at times. I think if they can run the ball very well, I think Michigan wins the game. If Michigan can't run the ball very well, I think Ohio State wins. And I like Donovan Edwards. I think he's a great player, and I think he's one of the underrated backs in the country. And I think there's a way for both teams to win. But I give Michigan the slight edge here.
Okay. I understand that. I fully understand that. I'll say it this way. When the season started, I thought Ohio State was clearly better than Michigan, 2 touchdowns better than Michigan. That Michigan was a really good team, a top 5 to 8 team in the country, but Ohio State was clearly better. As the season has progressed, my respect for Michigan has increased and my concerns about Ohio State has increased. And I would say there for 2 or 3 weeks here recently that I was starting to lean Michigan. They were playing more consistently strong, dominant football on both sides of the ball, running the ball and stopping the run and playing great pass defense, just playing great defensively more consistently. But when I add it all up, I still think Ohio State's just a better team.
And you got there, and it's going to be played at Ohio State, and that's the thing that's got an advantage on.
Sure.
And there's a part of me that wants Ohio State to lose because I cannot stand the way that some of the media covers Ohio State.
I think you've mentioned this to me before. You believe
Yeah,
the
yeah.
media is biased to Ohio State, and it's funny because Ohio State fans think that the media is against them, and it's. Listen,
Particularly just ESPN, just ESPN in
I have the
particular.
great joy of listening to all college football fans from different fan bases, and it's just amusing because, like I tweeted out the other day because I will have to admit a little annoyed at watching so many comments calling me a hater of this and a hater of that and a hater of this team and that team, that it's so funny because they all contradict each other. When it all adds up, I'm a hater of everyone. So you believe that ESPN favors Ohio State?
And it's just probably because they have more Ohio State grads than Well, they got two,
Who?
but they're very prominent
Yes, you're right.
in
And they used to have Chris Spielman there.
and to me, and maybe this is just me being biased here, and it probably is, but it just seems to me that when you talk about uh Ohio Ohio State, like even like somebody like Joel Klatt, who I think he's just a Big Ten homer, and I think that's maybe why he covers Florida. I mean, why he covers Ohio State the way that he
Well,
does.
no, that's not why he covers Ohio State. They give him an assignment every week.
No, I'm talking about on his own podcast, like on his
Oh,
own
okay,
show.
I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought you were talking about
I
games.
understand that. Yeah.
Well, I will say
Uh,
this, Hunter, that I guarantee if we took a poll, and I'm not saying this is correct, I'm just saying I guarantee this, that most people would say that ESPN is biased toward the SEC. And you know why?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, you
Well,
have.
the network, they carry the SEC, and starting next season, they are going to be the sole owner of SEC rights, and they, for the first time in history, are going to be completely detached from the Big Ten starting next season.
Well, and I don't care if this sounds arrogant to people, uh, but it's just the truth. And this is the only thing that I'll be emphatic about. The SEC is the best conference. There's almost no argument that SEC is not the best conference.
Sure.
And I mean, and that's why that I mean, it's about money, and that's what it comes boils down to. And um, so I think that's why that aspect of it is it. And I get that argument. I'm talking about from a coverage of the team, and things like that. That's where I'm coming
Do you
from my
really
perspective.
think that if you listen to Kirk Herbstreit and Joey Galloway and you did not know that they played for Ohio State, that you would be able to tell that they favor Ohio State?
Let me, and I'm not lying.
I don't
I'm not,
hear that myself.
no, and I'm not lying to you when I say this. I did not know until just I think 2 years ago that I found out where Desmond Howard went to school at. I didn't know that he graduated from OU.
Wait, who?
Desmond, what's his name? Is that his name? What's the
Are we
guy's
talking
name?
about Joey Galloway or Desmond Howard?
Uh, which one of them graduated from OSU?
I'm going to let you tell me now.
Am I wrong in thinking it's Desmond Howard? Am I wrong there? Am I just my brain playing tricks on me?
I find it interesting now because I want you to tell me because
I
you're
know that one of
starting telling
one
me
of them,
who favors whom, so you should be able to know where they played.
one of the two. I always get confused with those two guys because one of them's. I hear both of them a lot on the SEC, on the ESPN, and I always for some reason get those two confused. So which one? Just tell me which one it is.
Okay, Hunter. You're a good guy and a longtime caller and a loyal supporter. So, yes, Joey Galloway played at Ohio State circa 1991 through 94. Desmond Howard played at Michigan 1989 to 92.
Yes. Okay, that's right. Because now I remember correctly because I know that Desmond was one of the first wide receiver. He was the first wide receiver, right, to win the Heisman.
Tim Brown won the Heisman in 87.
87, and he won it in the 90s.
91.
91, and then you had so he's one of the few that's won.
Yes.
This one, I think, and then Joe. Okay, I knew it was one of them because I just could not remember.
We'll note that Joey Galloway was a better NFL receiver, but go ahead.
I genuinely confused the two because I see both of them on, ESPN, especially during like the selection, thing. When they do the selections every year, Joey's the one usually on there, talking, and that they bring some of the other guys in.
Okay, I've seen them
because
both.
they have different shows. So they have like the main one that they do where it's the selection, and they have another one that have like him and Jesse Palmer, and then some of the other guys that have a separate show. And so that's where I see them mostly. But yeah, so that's why I guess I've kind of confused the two.
Maybe I shouldn't say much because I would love to have either one of them on here at some point. Would be phenomenal. So maybe I shouldn't give my full opinion on their analysis. I will though. I'll basically say that I have tremendous respect for their athletic ability and what they achieved at the highest level. Both of them. Desmond Howard won a Super Bowl MVP, and Joey Galloway was a tremendous wide receiver for the Buccaneers and the Cowboys. However, I don't get a lot out of either one of them. They don't tell me anything that I didn't already know. They don't give me much insight into anything. They pretty much
How do you feel about Kirk?
do a bunch of cliches.
How do you feel about Kirk?
Already obvious.
How do you feel about Kirk Herbstreit?
I think Herbstreit's really good. There have been better analysts, and there's analysts that I enjoy a little bit better, but I think he's a really good at what he does. I think you can tell that, and I've heard the Ohio State guys that we have on during our Ohio State show on Wednesday, like Steve Hellwagon, who has been around Kirk Herbstreit, especially going way back to when he first started in Columbus, Ohio, after his playing career, that you can tell he is a student of the game and he studies and he is a worker. Like he studies these teams, he studies film. You can hear him in a broadcast. You can tell that he really puts his work in.
Well, where I've enjoyed seeing him on, and I've gained more respect for him from this, is him covering the NFL now.
Yeah.
And you see him able to
to
do the analysis. He can tell you things about what's going on in the game that if you're just a casual fan, you would understand things. So, but anyway, Mark, well, I hope you enjoy tomorrow. And we had a good game today.
Hunter, according to you, Hunter, I'm not going to enjoy tomorrow. I hope you enjoy tomorrow. Enjoy your first Iron Bowl. I'm guessing that you're going to enjoy, you're going to enjoy about 42-17 near the end of that game.
Let's hope so. My prediction was 34-14. Actually.
Okay.
That was my prediction.
Can you bump that up a couple points because I may need those couple points.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I have that's one game that I'm going to record. To watch. Sure. So I hope that it turns out to be a great game. I think both teams are very great teams, and I think actually as a fan.
Oh, Hunter, you know I'm going to stop you on these things. I hold everyone accountable. I just wanted to hear that comment one more time. You said both teams are great teams?
Yes.
Alabama and Auburn?
No, I'm saying that both teams, like Auburn. No, I'm not talking about Auburn, Alabama. I'm talking about Ohio State,
the
Michigan.
Ohio State Michigan game. Yeah.
And so, as a fan, just the college football fan in me, wants to part of me kind of wants to stay home and watch that game, but part of me,
You
just a
can
little
record
part,
that game too.
yeah, just a little
This is
part.
the beauty of the internet as well. All these games are going to be on YouTube later that day.
Yeah, you know what? I cannot find on YouTube or anywhere on the internet the Alabama and Ohio State national championship game. Every other one's on YouTube. I cannot find that
The
one.
playoff game.
The
Yeah.
national championship game.
Oh, the 2020 game. Gotcha.
Yeah, I can't find that. So if anybody knows how to
Hmm.
get that or where I can get that at,
I'm surprised.
please let Mark know so that he can relay that to me.
Yeah. Huh.
And I would really like to rewatch that game, but it's not on YouTube. You can't find it on YouTube. I've searched and searched
Really?
and searched.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. All right, Hunter. Hopefully you've got some good seats. Where are you going to sit?
Yeah, I'm sitting in section B. I was going to be on the Alabama side, so we'll be around some good folks.
The last time I was in Bryant-Denny Stadium was the year 1999 or maybe 2000. So it's been a while.
Well, Mark, please make it back to Bryant-Denny at some point.
I would love to. I would love to. I've never been in the stands. I've only been in the press box and the sideline.
They've done some renovations to that stadium even since my first Alabama game, which was when I was 8 years old, and I'm 27, so do the math. They've done some major renovations over the years, and I've never been to a Michigan or Ohio State game. I will be the first one to admit that. But I've been to Florida State games, several of them, and it's just an amazing atmosphere, especially at night when they have those night games and with all the lights and everything. It's really, really cool. And I think we can hold 105,000 now. I think that's what the capacity is. So it's a real cool environment. I would actually love to make it to go to a Ohio State and Michigan game at some point, just to observe the environment. Really.
I hear you. I hear you, man. Well, enjoy the day.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
calling.
Mark. All right. Bye-bye.
Good to hear from our buddy Hunter, who's going to his first Iron Bowl. That's exciting. Welcome in, everyone, to the Voice of College Football. I will leave the link in the live chat again. It's there a few times. Please call, share whatever you would like. I did have a Iron Bowl memory I thought was lodged up here, and then I lost it. That's okay. I know what he brought up. He brought up Desmond Howard. So before I take the next call, here's my Desmond Howard story, somewhat story. Not that I've ever talked to the man. I've passed him in the hall. But my Desmond Howard story was, okay, my first job out of college, my first real job, not like stocking shelves at a grocery store. My first TV job out of college, I was a news anchor at a little tiny television radio station in Ashland, Ohio, WNCO. And one of my side jobs was to do play-by-play for high school football, Ashland University football, basketball, and so forth. And also, they would have us, they were big on broadcasting parades. Why? I don't know. I think parades are the most boring thing on television. However, we broadcasted parades. And so I had to broadcast a parade the day of the Ohio State-Michigan game. And I said, Asa, who was our director, I said, it's Ohio State and Michigan. When is this freaking parade going to be over? Because I think it started at like 10:30 in the morning. I said, I've got to be home at noon. So anyway, we get done with the parade. I still have like 10 minutes to get home. I race home. I make it for kickoff. Everything's fine. Asa, not really understanding at that point, since I had only worked there for 2 or 3 months, basically that football season, he knew I was a big Buckeyes fan, but didn't really realize to what degree. And he thought he was kind of like not really a sports fan, not really a football guy, kind of like a non-sports fan, but he had to understand some of it because he was a director in TV. And so anyway, he thought it would be funny to call me every time Michigan scored. You can imagine how that went. there was a lot of yelling and slamming of the phone. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Marcus. Michael, how you doing, sir?
Michael, Old Oak and Bucket tomorrow. How's it going?
Good. Part one of the puzzle is completed.
That's right. Good for you. Now,
yeah, but who would have thought this?
Now you just have to hope that Pat Fitzgerald is just like, well, no, you can tie Illinois, right? You don't even care about Illinois. You beat them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. As long as Purdue doesn't lose tomorrow, they're all right. Part one is the puzzle, and I got a feeling there's from a lot of people I've talked to, it might be Purdue South out in Bloomington tomorrow.
It might be that Purdue does what?
Might be Purdue South.
Oh,
in other words, there's gonna be a lot of people going to the game probably.
It should be.
Yeah, but I gotta hit you this though, and I gotta give it to Mickey. Is it Mickey Joseph or Mickey James, the interim coach for? To me, it seemed like Nebraska came out kamikaze today against Iowa. Is that what you thought early in the game too? Especially after the 87-yard touchdown pass?
Well, what sabotaged Nebraska's offense this season is that they lost their quarterback for 3 games, and they went from scoring 30 and 35 points against most teams to scoring like 5. And they got Casey Thompson back last week, and he threw 2 touchdown passes to Trey Palmer. And one of the issues when your best player is a wide receiver and you lose your starting quarterback and your backups are horrible is that he never catches any passes then. And that's what happened to Trey Palmer the last 3 weeks is he didn't get the ball thrown to him because the quarterbacks were so bad. And now last week he caught 2 touchdowns against Wisconsin. And I said this repeatedly this week, probably not here on the main channel, but on the Nebraska and the Iowa channels on those shows, that Nebraska's path to victory was Trey Palmer. I said that over and over and over and over.
And sure enough, he had 2 touchdown passes, which was nice. And I mean, what's it, Casey? Is it Carter or is it Casey Johnson, their quarterback for Nebraska? Yeah, that deep ball for the first touchdown, that was a nice thrown pass.
Absolutely.
It could have been more spot on the money.
Yeah. It's good.
But
good
no, I mean, like,
he's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like to me, I would just like totally went back to their old way because I think like didn't they have like 4 or 5 missed snaps to Petrus and he got roughed up pretty good today?
Well, Spencer Petrus didn't play much. He threw 5 passes and got knocked out of the game.
Yeah, and I think one of them was an interception, wasn't it?
No.
All right. Oh no, it was the Alex. I can't think. It was the other guy who threw the interception. But no, okay. What do you think? I'm not sure what's up with Mike B. I mean, he might play, but it seems like that. So, in your opinion, what do you think key for Purdue to bring the back home tomorrow?
What's the key?
Yeah.
Don't turn the ball over. They're a better team. They should win the game.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you on this flip side because I know you're going to be engrossed in the game with 103,000 of your closest friends in Columbus tomorrow.
Clemson, South Carolina. That's the game I'm watching at noon. Absolutely.
Mark, if you say that one more time, I'm going to get you into psychiatrist ward. No, I'm just kidding. Key for Michigan and Ohio State. And I think it's going to be a game like 2006 where whoever has the ball last. But I think, as I was thinking about it, didn't Ohio State have the lead late and they just ran the clock out?
Yes.
I got a feeling it's going to be that type of game tomorrow, but I think whoever has the ball last is going to win. Because I'm not sure what's up with Henderson, and I'm not sure with Corum. But you ever get that feeling sometimes that McCarthy might have a good game tomorrow, JJ? He might just.
JJ McCarthy's an extremely talented player. Certainly, he could have a great game tomorrow. Of course.
I'm just wondering stuff like. Hey, my favorite Iron Bowl memory is I was down there. What was it, 2010 when Alabama was winning like 24-0 and Cam Newton brought it back? Yeah. That was it. And that place was like stunned silence because that was it. What had a bright Denny?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Auburn was wearing their white uniforms. Yeah, they came back and won 28-27. Yep.
Now, okay. I was just wondering stuff like that. Now, would you say that was the number one, or would you say the kick 6 is the best game of all time, you think?
Well, the kick 6 was an extremely good game, but sometimes games get rated higher than they should be because of one play. I doubt anybody could name any other plays in that game except for the kick six. Well, they were both extremely important because Auburn went on to a national championship game both times. Oh my goodness, they were both great games. I'm not going to try to rate them. I would say I'll go with a kick six game just because the craziness of that final play in the moment was just absurd.
All right, and I got a project for you, and I'm going to do my five, sure.
Okay.
Your top 5 Ohio State Michigan games of all time, and I'll do the top 5 Purdue IU.
Oh, nice.
Tomorrow.
Oh, you're going to do yours tomorrow, and I've got to do mine now?
No. I'll give you one day to.
You're going to give me one day. Well, Michael, with all due respect, how much do you think I'm going to be thinking about that over the next day?
I don't know. You're multi-talented, Mark. You gotta give yourself credit for everything, though. But no, just wondering stuff like that. But in your opinion, though, do you think Vanderbilt can get it done tomorrow, or do you think Tennessee's going to do what South Carolina did to them last week?
I think that Vanderbilt has shown us over the last 2 weeks that they're a pretty capable football team. And we watched Florida tonight take Florida State to the brink. And there is a layer of 3 or 4. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Sorry.
There's a layer of 3 or 4 dozen teams in this country that can win against each other. We've seen it all over the place. So Vandy can beat Tennessee. I don't know where the game is. Do we know where the game is?
I think it's at Neyland Stadium. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I could be wrong.
It doesn't help, but Hendon Hooker being out of the game, that's a huge loss.
Yeah.
Joe Milton is not a good quarterback.
No, he's not.
He can throw the ball through a brick wall, but he doesn't know where it's going, and he not only is erratic, like in his throwing, like he's a poor man Anthony Richardson. Like his throwing is that erratic, but he's not near the runner that Anthony Richardson is by any stretch of the imagination. He's not even close. And then on top of that, he also tends to get shaken and rattled. Yep.
All right. One last thing before I let you go. If Auburn can get it done tomorrow, do you think they should at least have a serious interview with Cadillac Williams, but maybe offer him the job or something, or have a serious interview with him?
I would hope that, with all due respect to Cadillac Williams, that they would have a serious interview with him regardless, just to pay him the respect of holding this team together during a difficult time and because of him being one of the great players in the history of the school. But you're right. I get your point that he is worthy of consideration if he wins this game, or I don't even know if it's winning the game, but showing that
it's competitive,
plays for him, and he put together a game plan that can match Nick Saban. You know, if they lose this game 31-27, like their team's nowhere close to Alabama's, but if this is a great game and they take them to the wire on the road, then that tells us a lot.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Will,
Carson did the same thing last year. Let's not forget that. He took Alabama to overtime, and if Tank Bigsby keeps the ball in bounds, Brian Harsin wins.
He's probably still coaching at Auburn right now.
He might be the coach. Yeah.
Yeah. Sonny Dykes, he your national coach of the year?
Off the top of my head, yes, he's going to have to be. Yes, absolutely, he is. Yeah.
Yep. All right, I got to say this to Will again. Will, I love you like your brother, but is that happening for your beloved Leprechauns tomorrow? I got a feeling
you want USC to win? Okay. Michael's gone. Thanks, Michael. Enjoy the Old Oaken Bucket game. We'll get to our next call in just a second. We appreciate David Knight here, our buddy David Knight. Good to see you, David. Thanks for being here. Who says the real question: if Michigan were to keep the game close, would Michigan slide into the college football playoff? I understand that answer is contingent on some other games, just food for thought. Well, yes, that's food for thought that we've been chomping on for a month. Okay. Michigan loses close, let's say. So Ohio State's winning the Big Ten. They're going to the championship game. They're good. Georgia's good. So the first thing that Michigan needs is for Georgia to beat LSU. They do not need LSU winning the SEC because that's going to take up 2 spots. So they need Georgia to win as expected. And it would certainly help if TCU lost if TCU, for as strange as this is, would lose to Iowa State tomorrow and then win the Big 12 championship game, I believe that they would have a much stronger consideration for the playoff than if they win tomorrow, then lose the Big 12 championship game against a better team, because championships count. Now, to what degree depends on the committee and each particular member, but it's supposed to count for something significant, winning a conference championship. Michigan wants USC to lose. That's all there is to it, whether that's to Notre Dame and then win the Pac-12 championship or lose the Pac-12 championship game to Oregon. That wipes out the Pac-12. And then we look at some interesting comparisons between, let's say, Clemson and Michigan. So, yes, Michigan, if you believe ESPN's count, and they're as close to the situation as anything, and for as much as I respect ESPN's production quality, their, I'm just going to say journalistic integrity. No, I'm not going to say that anymore. I will say ESPN's tremendous resources and production quality and ability to cover college football better than anybody, and all the great things at ESPN. I don't necessarily agree with their statistical analysis, and I could prove that over and over and over and over, how their FPI is faulty. They've got Ohio State at like almost 90%. I forget the exact numbers. I do remember they had Michigan at 64%, which basically shows us that they believe that Ohio State's going to win the game and that Michigan is still going to make the playoff. Crazy. All right. The real MVPs here. Hey, man.
Hey, Mark. How you doing this evening?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Plenty of big games on tomorrow, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure probably the biggest game tomorrow is going to be that TCU Iowa State game, right?
Yeah, the Cyclones. Sure. Heck yeah. Who's carrying that game? I wonder. That sounds like an FS1 game. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think, listen, every week could be the week. And Iowa State, while they're not overly impressive this year, I think they're solid. Like any Pac-12, Big 12 team is solid enough to beat them. So I think a lot of people are just rooting for TCU to lose, kind of like Oregon last year, just to push them aside, get them out of the way, you know?
Yeah, there are so many, for TCU being such a tremendous story, there are so many people that are rooting against them, just do not want to see TCU in the playoff.
Yeah, and you know why, Mark? It's probably because they'd get crushed by like 30 or 40 points.
I want to see it happen, though. I let me correct that. I don't want to see TCU get crushed. I don't care. I don't care about them one way or the other. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not rooting for them or against them, but I want to see them have the opportunity. I want to see it proven on the field that they're going to get crushed by 40 points.
Well, in the 12-team playoff, which is going to happen, based on what I think is going to happen, you get to see TCU and teams like TCU get crushed over and over and over again. So just wait a few years, Mark. But
I want to see it.
Oh, fine. I'm saying just wait a few years, Mark. Patience. Have the patience. Have patience. Mark, you know the Governor's Cup is tomorrow against Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes, for the fine Commonwealth of Kentucky. Yes.
Yes. And it's the ACC's already won as 1-0 against the SEC.
Yes.
Do I need to be worried about Louisville this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you do. They're playing good football. Now, you went through their quarterback situation the other night. Now, certainly Malik Cunningham's going to be missed severely. So, yeah, if they're playing with a third-string quarterback, because the backup quarterback has played a couple games this year, and he's done okay, Doman. But I thought you told me the other day that he won't even play.
Well, for the NC State game, they had some guy named Brock playing. Now, I don't know what's going to happen during the
okay. I need some intel on this game here. I picked Kentucky to cover the spread of 3. But heck yeah, that's an interesting game. Who's got that game? That sounds like an SEC network game.
I believe you're right. My problem with Louisville is their defense is great, but they blitz all the time, it feels like. And if you can get the ball out quick, I think Louisville's secondary can be exposed. And I know everybody jokes about Will Levis, him being overhyped for the NFL draft, but Mark, I checked, and you know where he's projected to go?
Tell me, and then tell me by whom he's being projected.
I believe CBS Sports, he's projected 3rd overall.
Yeah, I don't know why Will Levis is such a joke to people, because he's going to be a rich man and he's going to be highly drafted. I don't know if he's going to be 3rd or 1st or 10th, but it's going to be something like that.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. And it's not about what you do in college as much as about the intangibles. It's 2 different set of skills. Now, what you do in college can't have an impact,
Well,
but there's a certain set of characteristics that people in the draft are looking for. Like if you're 6'4" as a quarterback versus 5'11",
yeah.
well, and you've got the same attributes, well, the 6'4" guy's probably going to be ranked ahead of you.
Tim Tebow is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of college football. He was a lousy NFL quarterback.
Yeah, so CBS Sports, they've got 2 people. One of them has them 3rd going on overall, and the other's got them 6th. That's pretty good. But it's like when I say he's going number 1 overall, it just gets laughed at as if it's an absurd notion.
Yeah, that's because people are disconnected with what the reality of talent evaluation is by the NFL versus what's going on in college.
Right. That's a good point, Mark. And, you know, speaking of evaluation, Florida played Florida State today. And I know the SEC lost, but you had what? The 10th or 11th best SEC team go against the 2nd best ACC team?
Yes.
On the road? And
Yeah.
the SEC team could have won?
Yeah.
If anything, isn't that a feather in the cap toward the SEC?
Yes, it is.
Right. So the gap has expanded?
Well, it's still a win for the ACC. Let's credit the conference that received the win. But yes, like you, that's how I look at things. I don't just say, well, the ACC won, so the ACC is better. No, well, this is the 2nd or 3rd best team in the ACC. And I do believe that they're better than North Carolina, the 2nd or 3rd best team in the ACC. And yes, the 10th or 11th best. And we watched the game. We saw it go down to the wire on the road. And Florida was missing most of its wide receiver core as well.
Right. And Connor Johnson, I see him in the comments, says, why does DeReal keep calling Florida the 11th best SEC team? They're like 6th or 7th. Just look at the SEC standings.
6th or 7th?
6th or 7th. 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
There's 5 teams that are inarguably, in my opinion, that have separated themselves. Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee. Those are the 5 best. And then Kentucky beat Florida, Vandy beat Florida, Arkansas is ahead of them, Mississippi State's ahead of them.
Yep.
So that's 9 right there.
Well, then it starts to get a little vague. Like
Right.
as soon as you threw in Arkansas, Florida, that's a toss-up.
I get what you're saying, but Vandy and Kentucky have to be placed ahead of them because they got the same SEC record, but you know, they're ahead of them because they had.
I believe our buddy Connor Johnson is pointing out that the Sagarin ratings have Florida. I guess he's talking about Florida 7th in the nation at number 30, but they could still be 10th in the SEC at 30th in the. Oh no, he has them at 7th in the SEC. I got it. I guess that's what he's saying there. But you're looking at the standings, which that's the best thing to go on, the actual results on the field.
Right, I have to go on the results of the field.
And,
otherwise, why are we playing the games?
Florida went, 3-5 in the SEC.
Right. I mean, I know Tennessee lost to an unranked South Carolina, and because of that, they can't be ranked anymore from what I'm being told, Mark. That's the implication, is they can't be in the 12-team playoff. They shouldn't be lower than 10th. It's SEC bias that they're even 10th at all, Mark. So, you know, I guess it's to each their own. But I heard one of your other callers talk about Ohio State and how there's Ohio State bias, Mark.
Yeah.
And I want to be objective, and I want to have integrity. And when I come on here people saying the SEC bias makes no sense to me. So I've got to come on here and say Ohio State bias makes no sense to me, Mark. I don't understand the logic. Why people is surprised that Ohio State is valued highly by the media. Ohio State has been the second or third best program in the last 15 years. So the idea that Ohio State is talked about as if they're a really good team is shocking. Shouldn't be shocking.
Yes, Ohio State is the best record in college football in the last 15 years and in this century. Now, Nick Saban's won more national championships, so you play it out however you want. But yeah, second best program since Nick Saban showed up. And maybe second or third, maybe Clemson's right there since Clemson arrived. But I'd say Ohio State's better, but it's really close. Yeah, second, third, whatever you want to put them. There is no conversation about elite status during any frame of time period in Ohio State's history. Yes. Like, I don't know what's being said out there that's so over the top in their favor. I don't know. People need to bring me examples if that's the case.
Yeah, I don't understand what could be said. I mean, Ohio State has an argument that they're the best program of all time.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that. But Mark, can we bring Ben on?
Oh, Ben. Look at Ben's here. All right, let's bring Ben on.
Okay, Drill. I have to ask you guys this question. I was actually calling to talk to Mark about that because we've talked about Michigan and Ohio State, but when you guys are talking about SEC, we have LSU that lost to Florida State.
Okay.
So that's one ACC beating of a SEC team.
Yeah.
Then we just got another one tonight with Florida losing.
Okay.
Now, LSU, isn't LSU the second or third?
And before you get started on this, do you really want to take this up?
I do, because
go ahead.
No. I'll take it. But isn't LSU the second best team in the SEC?
I don't think so, but I get your point. They're playing in the SEC championship.
I mean, ranking wise, they are.
Yeah. Okay.
If you look at standings, they beat Alabama, and they're the next one up in the West.
Okay.
I mean, maybe Tennessee could, there, but okay, so they're neck and neck, and they lost to Florida State.
Okay.
So how does that not?
You're basing your opinion on an entire conference based on a 1-point game on September.
No, but what has SEC? You got the Georgia game, and then that was a dominant performance of the SEC team. Where have they dominated other conferences this year?
Ben, come on. Do you really want me to run?
Auburn lost to Liberty. I mean, you have.
Do we need to pull up the list of SEC wins? Do we need to pull the list out that you've got?
Okay, Ben, please. We'll take on the argument, and I don't think the SEC has been as dominant as they've been in the past, nor I don't think that their list of wins and losses. First of all, let's start with this. I truly don't believe that there's enough conference games, non-conference games played between the conferences for us to get a great gauge on this. But the SEC does have the best win-loss percentage, and in looking at the quality of opponents than anybody in the country this year.
Versus Power 5 or just overall out of conference?
No, I'm not counting wins against the Citadel. No, yes, Power 5. So, Ben, what conference has defeated Oregon, Utah, Texas, Cincinnati, those caliber of teams?
Well,
the answer is nobody.
For one, Cincinnati is not Cincinnati a Power 5 team?
They're not a Power 5 team, but they're better than about half the Power 5 teams. So
yeah, but you can't really. So I'm saying you can't compare conferences really when you throw Cincinnati. I mean, or even Notre Dame because they're really.
Is Cincinnati better than Colorado?
Yes, of course.
Then why aren't we?
This year, probably.
We should count a win against Colorado just because they happen to be in the Power 5, but not Cincinnati.
Well, I'm just saying you can't. I mean, I'm saying Colorado and Cincinnati could play, and maybe Cincinnati isn't really that good. Cincinnati has some questionable loss.
Then let's start with this. What is your point?
Well, my point is, how is it that I just don't see the assumption
that the ACC is better than the SEC?
No, my point is, it's just we're giving LSU a bye almost of one game loss compared to what the so if LSU with a two loss LSU wins the SEC championship.
Yes,
they're in. Everybody's calling it in.
Sure,
but. Yeah. I'm saying, okay, even if SEC they're not that dominant over the other conferences as far as you compare all the games. I mean, how do you base a two-loss SEC team over a one-loss any other team or one-loss TCU?
Do you want to go through all the games?
I mean, Mark, you go through all the games. I'm asking, you don't think that's reasonable? You don't think that TCU has had some reasonable wins? If they're one loss, how do they not get in over LSU if LSU wins the championship?
Well, let's put it this way. I believe that if TCU wins the Big 12 championship and has one loss, I want them in the playoff. Me personally wants TCU to be in the playoff if they earn it, but somebody's going to be left out in that scenario. If most likely somebody's going to be left out that has quote unquote earned it, at least in my estimation, just like in other seasons. I can name a bunch of seasons and tell you so-and-so got left out that I believe earned it. LSU's, let's get this straight. LSU has much better wins.
Right.
And we're talking about an LSU team that would have just beaten Georgia, you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, this conversation is null and void. So LSU is going to have wins over Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi State and Ole Miss.
Mark, do we lose Mark?
Hello?
Oh, sorry. I thought I lost you. I was just listening. I just
listed off LSU's wins.
Yes.
Yeah. And just because they played somebody with a pulse, non-conference, and they lost by 1 point on a missed PAT on the last play of the game, we're going to discredit them while TCU's non-conference win was against Colorado.
Yeah. But I mean, TCU's got some good wins.
Of course, they've got some good wins.
I mean,
those wins are close to Alabama and Georgia this year.
What's that?
No win TCU has is close to Alabama and Georgia.
No, that's true. Maybe. Maybe. Listen, Drill.
Does anybody want to pick Kansas State to beat Bama or Georgia?
Did TCU beat Texas or not?
Yes.
Okay, and Texas went right to the wire with Alabama. How is Alabama like? We're looking at Alabama like they're the number one team when we say Alabama.
No, they're
not. They're not much better than Tennessee. I mean, they probably are better. I mean, when I look at them, I think they're better, but they're not unbeatable. They're not
unbeatable. They've been beaten by two teams in the SEC.
But I mean, how far apart are they from Texas or some of these other teams that TCU's beat? Not that far.
Over the course of a season, I don't think Texas fans would want to see them play Alabama week after week after week after week. I think they gave them their best shot, and they played a great game, and they should have won the game.
But how many times did we see Alabama almost lose this year? I mean, they've been like, we can't say Alabama is Georgia.
We've seen them lose. Nobody's claiming Alabama's Georgia. We are claiming that Alabama's one of the 5 best teams in the country. Now, should they be given credit for that? No, they lost 2 games. But understand, Ben, Alabama lost those 2 games on the last play of the game against 2 extremely good teams in 2 of the most difficult places to play in college football.
the extremely great team that Tennessee that just got trumped by LSU.
Are we going to play this game?
Well, I'm just saying.
We got to play this.
What I'm saying
I
is,
don't say
Mark.
this about myself very often, but I'm a master at the game that you're about to play. If you want to start connecting dots, I'll do that.
You are, Mark. But what I'm saying is, we either have to give. I agree. But we can't look at it both ways in favor of SEC. We can't look at it as like, okay, Alabama. I think they could be the 4th or 5th best team. I don't think.
Okay.
I think Alabama's a good team. I don't think maybe they have it together, but I think they have the talent to put it together. And I'm not. But something's not clicking for Alabama.
Sure.
So that's why I value Alabama as a team. But we either got, and I'm not even going to criticize SEC. SEC has a lot of talent, but I think they've underperformed as far as talent this way, other than Georgia. I think they've been shaky.
Where have they underperformed? Where is the underperformance? Was it tonight?
No. Just in general, they haven't.
Give us the examples.
Okay, the examples. Let's see. Let's look at it.
And please don't give me any examples of them playing other SEC teams and underperforming, because you know what you're doing. You're basically
no. I understand.
They're playing in a conference with other teams that are that good. So where are the examples of the SEC underperforming? And I'm not saying that they're not there. I'm just wanting you to.
Okay.
Listen.
All right. So LSU lost to Florida. I've already mentioned Arkansas lost to Liberty.
Florida State is the second best. Florida State is the second best team in the ACC,
or
most
third,
likely. Second or third.
But
understand. I'll just say two things real quick, and then you can cut loose.
Okay.
We can go to any conference in the country and find bad losses.
Yeah, I know.
Embarrassing losses.
Oh yeah, I know. The Pac-12's got the people, but this. I think
I'm going to also tell you though that it's going to be very difficult for you to go to any other conference and find teams that are in the lower echelon of that conference who either beat or play down to the wire the best teams in other conferences. You're not going to be able to find that in any other conference.
Lower echelon of teams that
Florida,
okay, so
2-6 or 3-5 in the SEC.
I got you.
Florida State down to the last play of the game and beating Utah. You're not going to be able to find those kind of examples.
Where was the Utah game played?
It was at Florida, but why does that matter?
It does matter because it's Utah. It
matters, but you're not going to
credit it better at home. Winning? It does matter.
Are we?
I understand, but it's still the gap should be so big it shouldn't matter.
But the thing is, my argument is, and I'm not saying the gap is. I'm just saying I don't see, and my point is I don't see the gap being so huge that it merits. It's a lost forgiveness for one SEC team.
I don't have an issue with that. I still don't understand what your point is, except for that you believe that we're overrating the SEC or somebody's overrating the SEC.
Well, I think when you give a 2-loss champion,
okay,
into the playoff versus a 1 loss in any other conference, you are saying that SEC's just significant. Their comparison to the other, their win-loss comparison to the other conferences are that's significant better, and I just don't see it.
If LSU wins the SEC championship game, you don't believe that they have a better resume.
But this is the thing, you said I can't compare to other people for losses. I can't compare other people in the SEC, other games in the SEC. So you can't do that when you're talking about Georgia. If LSU beats Georgia, they're just another SEC team.
The
top might not be as high either.
What?
The top, like Georgia's top, may not be as high as we're thinking because we don't have enough games.
One game to prove that. And what did they do?
But then you have to count other games too. The same way.
Count other games.
So Florida had one game to prove that they were better than LSU.
The SEC has the best out of conference performance than anyone in the country. It's not dominant. It's not
Just because of the
crazy good.
Georgia game?
No, because of all the games I just listed. Nobody, Ben, do a little exercise. Go through all the conferences and list the best teams that each conference has beaten. Go to the Big Ten and list all the best teams that the Big Ten is defeated this year.
Well, I've done that. I mean, Rutgers.
It's not.
Rutgers had conference
We can
wins.
do it in about 8 seconds because it's a pretty bad list, unfortunately.
Notre Dame,
and
Boston
then it
College.
drops off the cliff.
Yeah. You have Penn State. Penn State beat Auburn.
There you go.
We
And
have
Penn State beat Auburn like everybody else in the SEC beat them. They're one of the worst teams in the SEC.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying that.
And
I'm not.
Penn did exactly what they should do. So I credit Penn State with doing what they should do. They went to a difficult place to play and beat a historically great program that is awful right now, and they beat them. They beat them bad.
But
Okay.
I mean, you look. I mean, they did. They beat them. They beat them 41-12, which is not much of a different game than the Georgia Oregon game. I mean, it's score differential.
Wait. The
much
difference is that you have what's most likely the third best Big Ten team beat one of the worst SEC teams by record, compared to the Pac-12, which Oregon's one of the best teams, compared to Georgia, which is one of the best teams in the SEC.
Yeah, but I'm saying it is the third. It is the third best.
What is
and I'm not saying that it's comparable to Georgia.
And if you actually watched Penn State play Auburn, it was a much closer game than the Georgia-Oregon game.
I watched a little bit of it, but I didn't watch the whole game.
20-something to 12, like near the fourth quarter.
But that was my whole point, though, and I don't see that it's even being disproven that a 2-loss. I know a 2-loss LSU winning the championship is the SEC's win over other conference, or that much better to give a 2-loss team a championship berth or a playoff berth.
Hold on, Ben, if you can give me a moment. Mark, I've been reading the chat, okay? And I want to ask you a question. Tim says, any argument that talks about Oregon's first game is disingenuous at best. How is it disingenuous to talk about a football result?
We're eliminating games in the season. Then we're going to eliminate LSU's first game. We can eliminate that too. They lost to Florida State.
No, that argument is true.
Eliminate that game. Let's eliminate that game.
No, that's I wouldn't even make that point. But my point is, I don't see the difference in the cross and their cross play to just excuse a loss.
That, Ben, but then you can't tell us who's beating whom in total to have that opinion.
I'm just saying. I mean, the bot.
Then believe me, if you go through every conference and you list who are the teams that they beat and who are the teams that they lost to, you will be most impressed by the SEC's wins this season, especially if you take them into context. Florida, Utah, Georgia, Oregon, Arkansas, Cincinnati, Alabama, Texas, etc.
And I don't look at Arkansas. I don't look at Cincinnati as a huge win. I mean,
if you're not looking at Cincinnati as a huge win, then the Big Ten beat no one but Notre Dame. Cincinnati would be the Big Ten's second best win out of conference.
I don't think Big Ten's getting huge credit for the Cincinnati win. Nobody says, "Oh, Indiana beat Cincinnati." So when Michigan went and played Indiana,
Indiana got killed by Cincinnati.
Yeah, okay, then why isn't Michigan's schedule boosted because of that Indiana win? It's not. If Cincinnati's so good.
What?
Didn't Cincinnati beat Indiana this year, Mark?
Yeah, they killed them.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. I thought you said it was the other way around. Okay, they got killed.
Mark, there's a few super chats rolling in.
I said Cincinnati's. If a Big Ten team defeated Cincinnati, that would be the Big Ten's second best win. That's what I'm saying. You cannot find a second best win to Notre Dame from the Big Ten. And that pains me to say, but I tell the truth here.
I mean, I'm looking at Cincinnati, and they've had a lot of close. They lost to USC. They lost to Tulane. They had a 10-point game to Tulsa.
I'm not telling US Cincinnati is some great team, but I am telling you that Cincinnati would be the second best win for the Big Ten. And if you want to disprove that, if you want to offer me another win by the Big Ten, that I'm glad to listen to it. I guess that would be Minnesota's win over New Mexico State or.
Okay, so are you talking about Power 5 conferences? Like, so we're not counting Notre Dame?
About anybody.
So Notre Dame by Ohio State, and then we're talking, Auburn would be the other one for Penn State. I don't know. Boston College is nothing. I don't know any other out of conference wins offhand from the Big Ten. That they even was play. I mean, I think the Big Ten went about 50% in their out of conference as far as against the Power 5 teams.
Okay.
Is that what it is? Isn't that about where they're at?
A little less than that, a little worse than that. I think they're 5 and 6. So I will say this. I believe that the Big Ten is the second best conference in college football. That's what I believe. But I don't have the data to back that up because they only played 11 out of conference games that are meaningful and they just didn't freaking play well. They haven't beaten anybody except for Notre Dame.
I just personally, I don't see the data that's saying. I look my looking
Texas, Utah, Oregon, Cincinnati, and some other teams is better than beating Notre Dame and nobody else.
Oh, that Texas, Utah, yeah, no,
those are better wins than anything. The Big Ten's beat Colorado and Virginia and Boston College and SMU. There's your American Conference comparison. That's nowhere close to Cincinnati. That's it. And
okay, so I'm looking at losses. I mean,
okay, let's look at losses. You want to?
But I'm looking at LSU losing too. I'm looking at LSU and both Florida losing. I don't see it's a dominant. I mean, yes. I mean, even the games that Alabama won, they were close.
I'm not cited 2 SEC losses to the probable second best team in the ACC, and the Big Ten's lost to Duke, Southern Illinois, Washington State, Washington, who's a good football team.
I'm just saying, like, Alabama almost lost to Texas.
You got to admit, you came on here and you don't even know who.
I don't.
The various conferences defeated or did not defeat.
I don't know.
They're having an issue with, except for LSU should not be in the playoff because they lost 2 games. That's your point, and I understand it. I get your point. You want to go strictly by record, I guess. That's fine.
I mean, I think. Well, I do think LSU has been given a lot of leeway, and I don't know if it's SEC, but I mean, I don't know. Mark, you've done it. You broke it down, and I guess I'm gonna. I know I'm out of my element.
I'm not saying that you
with what you know and what I know, because I don't go over the records as thoroughly as you.
Well, I don't want you to feel as though you don't have any valid points. If you don't believe that a 2-loss team should be invited to the playoff, and let's get that straight. It's an invite. It's an invitational. It's really not a playoff. And if I could discipline myself to call it an invitational, I would, because that's what it is. It's so funny that people now think I love the SEC, because for years everybody thought I hated the SEC, and really my opinion hasn't changed. My opinion just changes based on the facts, based on the data and the metrics. But you believe that LSU should not make the playoff as a 2-loss team. So you're more into record versus resume or schedule. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it's mainly I've been hearing, like, I'm hearing Clemson should not be in the playoffs. because the ACC is no good.
Should
And I'm not
Clemson
gonna-
be in the playoff?
I really don't have the. What I'm saying though, and this is what I'm hearing from media and somewhat here, but if that's the case, LSU lost to an ACC team, only the third best ACC team. So how does LSU get in? And they lost to the third best ACC team, and then I'm here, and it doesn't make sense to me.
So Clemson, both teams playing in the ACC championship game lost to Notre Dame and lost convincingly to Notre Dame. So Clemson lost to Notre Dame. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And got blasted. LSU lost to Florida State in a 1-point game. That would be my only. I don't have an issue with Clemson being considered for a playoff spot if they win the ACC.
Mark, can I ask some questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Ben had a point earlier that Alabama played in too many close games, and you can't play in too many close games. Well, Clemson, double overtime against Wake Forest.
Yeah.
10-point game against NC State. 6-point win against Florida State. 6-point win against Syracuse. 14-point win against Louisville. Now, I don't know if that's considered close or not, but Clemson has played in a lot of close games this year, I would say.
And I watched those games, and I wouldn't say the Louisville game was close, but Wake Forest double overtime, that was razor close. And the Syracuse game, Syracuse had a bad call against them late that really hurt them, and they barely pulled out a game against what we've seen proven to be a pretty marginal Syracuse team that lost 6 games in a row.
But doesn't that actually help the point of LSU not belonging in the playoffs?
No, because we're talking about a Clemson collection of 8 games played against that conference. We're talking about LSU playing the probable second best team in that conference. We're looking at Clemson struggles against 5th and 6th and 7th best teams in that conference.
Okay, so the win of the second best team, we'll say, because Clemson is now the third best in this scenario. Best team. I'm saying, let's say Clemson isn't truly the best. We're gonna elevate Florida to the best or the second best.
What?
Well, I'm just saying that.
I have no idea what you're asking.
I'm saying, are you saying that? I didn't know if you're saying Clemson isn't the best in the conference.
No, I believe they're the best team in the conference.
Yeah, I do too.
Then Florida's the second or the third best.
Florida State's probably the second best. North Carolina's probably the third best. Still.
Okay.
If I had to take a guess. But the point I was making was you were talking about Alabama and how they've played so many close games. And my point is, you were thinking about Clemson making the playoffs, but they've played in so many close games. And not only have they played in so many close games, I can argue they've played in so many close games against weaker teams.
But that's not my point, Drill. My point isn't, I'm not advocating for Clemson to make it either.
Oh.
I'm just saying that my argument is, though, if Clemson is out with a 1 loss and by Notre Dame, but they've handled their conference, how is LSU in with a loss to Florida State? That's what I'm saying.
Look at the wins Clemson has. Look at the wins LSU has. Which one has better wins?
Oh, definitely LSU would have to be.
That's why. That's why they would get in. If they were to get in, that's why they would get in. LSU would have beaten Georgia. LSU has beaten Alabama. Is there any team Clemson has played that's even close to those two teams?
Anyone Clemson has played that's close to those two teams? Not. Okay, so
Clemson might not have any ranked wins at the end of their season, with North Carolina losing to North Carolina State today. And if Louisville loses to UK tomorrow, they're probably out since they're at 25. So the team that goes 12-1, that might have no ranked wins make the college football playoff?
On
Mark,
there
what do you
you
think
don't think
about that?
wait. Let me look. So you're
I'm
saying
not
North
taking the
Carolina's
ranked wins.
out. North Carolina's out. So you're saying no ranked wins?
I'm saying, well, I don't know for sure, but if Louisville loses tomorrow, and
Okay.
since North Carolina's lost, their ranking's going to take a hit. It's possible that they're unranked because they're probably going to lose to Clemson, so they're going to have 4 losses.
Clemson's going to have ranked wins, and I'm not even into ranked wins. Anyway,
Yeah, I don't see that.
So-
I mean, I just don't see how that's. I'm trying to figure out how Clemson wouldn't have a ranked win, but I guess maybe. But
Florida State's going
I
to be ranked.
forgot Florida State. They're going to have one over Florida State. I forgot about them.
yeah, I was looking. I was trying to figure that. I was like, yeah, Florida's going to be ranked. There's no way. And Louisville could end up being ranked too.
Yeah, they're 25 right now, but if they lose to Kentucky, I doubt they're going to be ranked.
Yeah, well, and we'll see. I mean, what do you think if Louisville beats Kentucky? How does that set the SEC? Is that going to make a difference where LSU is sitting if they win that game?
Oh, do you think that should impact LSU?
I don't. I don't know if that's going to impact. I mean, does that add any validity to, is that going to at any point in shifting the tides of the SEC being so dominant?
No, not to me.
Because
It affects every result affects my evaluation of every conference.
I mean, it's gonna make it slightly worse, but it's not gonna be a massive shift in one direction over another. Like if Michigan were to beat Georgia, that would be a massive shift in how I view the conferences. Much more than if Kentucky lost to Louisville.
Gotcha. I don't know. When I look at it, I value losses, the team you lost to, as much as I value the teams you beat. And I don't know. I don't see there being a difference enough for us to say that. To guarantee LSU a playoff berth. I see that. I mean, I just see nobody's even questioning if LSU with 2 losses wins the championship for the SEC that they're in. Nobody's questioning that, and I just think it should at least be a conversation.
I don't think people question it because they would have won the best conference in the country. And they would have a better resume than other teams. Now, TCU, understand, we only have 1 game left in the season. So if TCU wins the Big 12 championship with 1 loss, they will have lost to Iowa State tomorrow. So that's a pretty bad loss.
Yeah.
Now, if they go undefeated, they're in. And if they go undefeated and they're not in, and I've seen all sorts of scenarios drawn up, then there's something drastically wrong.
So let me put it this way. If Michigan beats Ohio State in a close game.
Yep.
And then they win the Big Ten championship, and you have Ohio State and sitting with 1 loss and to a really good team. And then you have TCU going undefeated, and you have LSU beating Georgia. Is LSU getting in over Ohio State?
Yes, I think so. I would have LSU, Georgia,
even though
Michigan,
Georgia beat,
TCU.
and let's say Notre Dame wins out, and even though LSU, and I think, and honestly, Daryl, I think that's the way it would go.
Yeah, I don't think it matters what Notre Dame does or whatever non-conference teams Ohio State played. LSU would get in. Probably, I would have it as Georgia, Michigan, LSU, TCU as the 4 teams. Or no, TCU, LSU. Those would be the 4 teams. But I think LSU and Georgia would be on the opposite sides of the bracket, so TCU would be at 4. So you would have an undefeated team behind a 2-loss team. Now, that would be controversial, I would imagine. Right, Mark? Having an undefeated team behind a 2-loss SEC team? if that scenario were to play out.
Yeah, so you've got TCU playing Georgia and LSU and Michigan playing.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
I don't think that I don't think they would make it to where two teams playing back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, they would have a serious issue there because I can't justify them raising LSU above TCU as a 2-loss team, but also they would run into, well, wait a minute. LSU has to beat Georgia. Michigan's going to be the 1. You make Michigan the 1.
Michigan would be the 1.
Oh, yeah, Michigan would be the 1.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Michigan plays LSU and Georgia plays TCU.
Yeah. That makes
And then
better sense.
it leaves Ohio State out.
Yeah. Mark, do you agree Ohio State would be left out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, that just doesn't make sense. I mean,
So you don't care about championship?
I care more about wins and losses.
Okay.
I mean, I think I'm telling you, any other school loses one game and they're gone. I mean, there's no way if Iowa would have won or if the West wins, one of the teams from the West were 2 losses and one that they were going to get in. There's no way it would happen in the Big Ten. Even a 1.
Because the Big Ten Western Division
I know.
is losing every non-conference game it's playing. They're not beating teams like Texas and Oregon and Utah, etc.
But I mean, we're talking the other 1-loss conference championships. Like, let's say if even say USC, USC wouldn't be in the conversation there, and they're a 1-loss conference chance, and USC's got some good wins on their docket.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more than Ohio State.
Yeah.
And it would still leave USC with 1 loss out of that conversation. I think that's kind of one of the things that a lot of the guys over in the Pac-12 aren't happy about because that's probably the way it would play out.
Well,
and it doesn't.
Are you talking about what I believe should happen or what?
I'm just saying but I think we feel and I think that's the way the media is going. I think that's what would happen. Exactly what you guys are saying.
You know what?
I don't think it should.
You know what I would decide if USC wins the Pac-12 with 1 loss, and the other scenario is exactly what you just stated. I'd leave Georgia out.
Would you?
Yeah. I would go Michigan, TCU, LSU, and USC. They're 4 champions. They're the 4 best champions.
Mark,
I think fair.
I will give you these last few months have been eye-opening to me when I said I didn't want the 14 playoff to be expanded. I want it to be 12, and actually I'm going to reevaluate my position. I want it to be 32. I just want as many SEC teams. That way we can get rid of these narratives that the SEC isn't the best conference, that the out of conference wins don't matter.
Hey, Drew, real, are the SEC going to start going to other places and playing?
Yes, Florida's going to Utah next year. Florida's going to Utah. Mississippi State went to Arizona this year.
Oh, good. Well, I think Utah's on a downtrend and Florida's on an uptrend, so that's going to be good.
Okay, we're going to bring in another.
I'm gonna let you go, Mark. It was nice. Thanks for having me, man.
Sure, Ben. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. All right, DeReal. Appreciate you calling.
Yeah, no problem, Mark. Good luck to everybody's teams tomorrow that are playing. Mark, can I get OH, Mark?
IO.
Yeah, and fight on, everybody.
There you go. All right. I'm going to take your call, TriStar. Appreciate you being here. Give me 20 seconds because I want to acknowledge these super chats, and I also want to explain at least where I sit on this. Okay. I don't think there's any question. There is no question that over the past 10 to 15 football seasons, that everything that can be measured has indicated and proven that the SEC has been the best conference going into 2022. Can we all agree on that? For as much as some people hate the SEC or I hate the SEC or whatever, it doesn't matter. Take your emotions and your feelings out of it. As somebody famously once said, facts don't care about your emotions. So take your SEC hatred out of it. Let's look at it objectively. Going into 2022, yes, is there SEC bias, and is it overrated by certain people? Yes, absolutely. Everything's overrated by certain people. We can go to anything. There are Pac-12 people out there that are overrating the Pac-12. There are Big Ten people out there overrating the Big Ten. Yes, obviously, there are people overrating the SEC, but there is no question. Again, take your emotions out of it. The results on the field have proven for 10 to 15 years that the SEC has been the best conference. And we're not just talking about the championship. We're talking about every tier, Go through whatever metric you want to go through. Go through non-conference record, go through defeating ranked teams out of conference, go through bowl records, go through playoffs, certainly, and championship games. I'm not here. Don't kill the messenger. Those are the facts. That's what we deal with here. We tell the truth. Those are the facts. That's all there is to it. And then if you want to go beyond that, if you're a believer in what goes into the results, meaning the talent, the SEC recruits the best. And then 3 to 4 years later, you know what happens to prove that? Those players go and they get drafted and they go play in the NFL at record rates. It's a simple process. You look at the recruiting rankings. Okay. You take those and you put those into the results on the field in college. Oh, yep, they match up. Not everyone. Texas sucks. They recruit great. They suck. When I say they suck, I'm not talking about this exact team, but you know what I mean. Over the last 12 years, they've sucked. And so, yeah, Texas A&M this year sucks. They got a talented roster. They suck. Yes, but about 90% of the time, you take the recruiting rankings, you move them into the results on the field. If you look at the top 5 or 6 talent rosters during the college football playoff era, it is the college football playoff. It is the story of the college football playoff. The story of the college football playoff era in 8 seasons has been Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU, Oklahoma, Clemson. Those are the 6 that have played in the college football playoff constantly. And you know what? Go to the team talent rankings on 247 Sports over the last 8 years and put it all together. Those are the 6 most talented rosters in America. Crazy how that works. 3 to 4 years later, what happens? They get drafted and they go to the NFL. A bunch of guys in the NFL that evaluate talent draft these guys because they want to win games and make a lot of money in the NFL. Unless otherwise they get fired if they don't draft the right guys. So what do? There's roughly, I don't remember the exact numbers, there's roughly 320 or 340 SEC players in the NFL right now. And then the Big Ten's number 2, and it's a clear number 2 with like 260 or something like that. And then it goes down the line. Okay. It's like clockwork. And the results on the field have been that the SEC has been the best. Okay. That said, let me finish. In 2022, I tried to determine and try to shut all that off. That's all happened in the past. Now, if you're a thinking person that has a brain with some rationale, you understand that all of that is probably going to continue. That it's not just going to come to a sudden stop and a halt out of nowhere. But still, clear that out. It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It should not be evaluated for 2022. For 2022, all we have are football games that are played between the conferences. Has the SEC been dominant? No. Has the SEC been the best? Yes. Not dominant, but the best. Go through the wins, go through the losses, and the SEC has the best results against the other 4 conferences. However, you can understand that it's reasonable to put together what's happened in 2022 with this 15-year run and have it impact an evaluation to say, it's not like the Pac-12 came out of nowhere and in 2022 had the best results. And then you're kind of scratching your head going, well, wow, they're playing well this year, but they've sucked for the last 5 years, but they're suddenly playing well in 2022. No, it's the SEC playing well every year, and in 2022. All right. Matthew Miller. Ask Ben, what is Penn State's best win? Big Ten is the 4th best this year. They are propped up by Michigan and Ohio State. Matthew, thank you so much for that. Matthew hosts our Texas post game. I don't know who he believes is the worst conference. I actually believe that it's a great argument between the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC. I think it's a mishmash myself. I personally think that the Big Ten is the 2nd best conference, but it's not backed up by data and results. It's not. All right. Hang on, TriStar. Todd Gwynn. Wait till the end of bowl season to decide the best conference. That's a reasonable comment to make, and we will do that. That's what we do here at the Voice of College Football. We will have a grand summary of all this at the conclusion of the season. Yes, we will. And I hope it's a great debate. I hope more than anything, me as a college football fan, and also me as a YouTube channel owner that wants really riveting conversation, I want the SEC to go out there and go and lose a playoff game. Send LSU, watch them lose. Georgia gets upset. The SEC goes 0-2 in the playoff. Absolutely. That'd be great, because then it'd be like, maybe they're not the best conference this year. Okay, how about that? Maybe Michigan's going to wipe the floor with Georgia in the national championship game. Okay, that's not going to decide. That's going to be some people's decision. They're going to be like, well, the Big Ten's the best. They won the national championship. Well, no, it's one team. That's the most significant result of the season, but it's one team. All right, one last here. Shoelace Sooner. I'm getting popcorn saying the SEC is not that dominant. It's fascinating. Need to study this brain. All right, Shoelace Sooner, appreciate you being here. Of course, Shoelace Sooner will soon be an SEC person here in about, they signed the contract and they make the decision in the summer of 2021. And it takes 5 years for them to join the conference. I'm not blaming Oklahoma. I'm just saying for all of them to put that together, it seems kind of odd to me. I'm kind of surprised by that verdict. I believe we got one more super chat. David Green Shield. I still think people overrate the middle of the SEC. Okay. I'm sure some people do. Absolutely. Again, there are you can find people doing anything or overrating anything. All right, TriStar, we appreciate your patience. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, how you doing?
I am doing just fine. What's on your mind?
So I wasn't here for Tuesday night when you guys talked about the college football rankings, playoff rankings. To me, I thought it was one of the worst ones they've done all season.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't get over this. To me, head-to-head has to be the number one thing you look at before conference championship week. Once conference championship week hits, then you can use that. I wouldn't have moved LSU ahead of Tennessee until after their conference championship game. And because I feel like you can take a 5-year-old and say, well, this team beat this team. Which team is better? And they'll tell you the team that won is better. So I don't understand how we have, just because I couldn't care if South Carolina lost by 50. I still would have kept them at number 6 or something and left them ahead of LSU and Alabama. I don't understand how.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know.
You're right.
I don't get it. Yeah.
It's like they just watched the games last weekend and thought, okay, this weekend wipes out everything else. There's such a recency bias, or they're basically thinking that, well, Tennessee's not going to make the playoff now, and I understand that they shouldn't make the playoff. They're not going to make the playoff. But LSU's got a path to the playoff, so we got to rank them ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The committee was insane this past week. They are totally screwed up. Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was so bizarre. And for the people who say it doesn't matter, well, it does because the Sugar Bowl is based off of who's ranked the highest out of the SEC teams. Well, why would Alabama deserve to go to the Super Bowl as opposed to Tennessee? Make it make sense.
Yeah. Well, I care about all the rankings just because I'm a college football nerd and I care about who's 23 and who's 24. But it also shows us how they process information and results and how their process works. So all the rankings are important from the standpoint of them revealing how they think about things. So it impacts the four spots that actually matter. And so I'll put it this way, TriStar. Tennessee's the number 5 team in the country before last week. If somebody would say to me, Tennessee's number 5 in the country, they get ambushed by South Carolina, they're dropping to number 10. I'm going to drop them to number 10. Is that reasonable? You know what my response would be? Absolutely. That sounds reasonable. The number 5 team in the country loses to a marginal team and they get blitzed. And
sure.
Yeah, drop them to 10. But this doesn't work in a vacuum. They're not the only team that exists just to say, they're the 5th best team. Yeah, drop them to 10. They beat Alabama and they beat you. And even if people want to excuse the Alabama win to say, well, they played at home, and this whole home road business, yes, I agree. Home field advantage is huge, but yes, they played Alabama at home. And then Tennessee, they actually play an equal number of games in the conference on the road as well. That works with everybody.
Yeah.
All they did was win the game. They won the game, and they beat LSU by 4 touchdowns.
I know it. And it's like, and they have very comparable schedules. Like, it's not some Tulane, Kansas State situation. Like, they're the same exact conference. Like, it's bizarre. And I thought the same thing with Washington, Oregon. I was like, same record, Oregon ahead of Washington. And it was like 4 rankings. I feel like Washington was like 13, Oregon was 9. I was like, really? I don't know. I didn't get it. The other thing I wanted to say was me and my brother were talking about the Michigan-Ohio State game. And we're both Michigan fans. And we were talking about like, could Michigan possibly run the ball on them? And he said, there's no way that Michigan gets 200 rushing yards on them. Like, it's not possible. So I wanted to ask you, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked would you be if Michigan was able to rush for 200 yards?
My shock scale of 1 to 10 would be about 3. I wouldn't be shocked. They just ran for 300 last year. And Blake Corum was nowhere near the running back that he is now, and he didn't even carry the ball last year. He's a better back than Hassan Haskins if he's healthy. We don't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
But
my brother,
the combination of Corum and Edwards this year, and again, the health is a major concern, is markedly improved. For as much respect I have for Hassan Haskins, and from the first time I ever watched him play against Illinois, and he came out of nowhere and was switched from linebacker to running back, and I was like, this guy's awesome. I love how he plays. He's not the dynamic player that Blake Corum is. They've increased their running attack. They just picked up Oluwatimi, one of the best centers in the country. They're better across the board running the ball for as good as they were last year when they ripped up Ohio State for 7.2 yards per carry. They're better this year if healthy.
Yeah. My brother was just saying, like, he thinks Ohio State's just going to stack the box. Like, they're going to force JJ to, like, have to throw the ball.
I agree with that.
Yeah, which I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess
what they should do.
I also wanted to say, I don't know your thoughts on the playoff and expansion or whatever. Personally, the first time I heard about it, it was like, I don't know. I like the fact that every game. I like the fact that a 4-team playoff forces you to have to win a big game to make it. Like, you can't just win against all your unranked teams and make the playoff. Like, in a 12-team playoff, Penn State would make it, even though in the current playoff poll, none of the teams they be in are in the top 25, but they would still be in, even though they just lost to Ohio State, Michigan. But since they are doing a 12-team playoff, Michigan and Ohio State, like this type of game that we're about to see tomorrow, is really not going to ever happen, like with the stakes this high. So I just want to say, like, everyone should really like enjoy this. Like, this, what's going on tomorrow? Like, this is huge.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like it like gives me chills. Like this, and this is gonna be like the last time we will ever see this type of game. You know what I mean?
It is a great point. You make a tremendous point. We are witnessing college football history because this 12-team playoff is going to take place, and that game is going to be for a bye. That game's going to be watching like an 8-season NFL game where you're like, oh, there's two 12-3 teams, and the winner's going to have to lead for the division. They're going to get a bye. And it's like, oh, that's a good game, but yeah, it's going to take away from
I know that's how I feel. I mean, obviously it's still Michigan Ohio State, but it is gonna take away a little thing. So I'm enjoying all the minutes leading up to it. So yeah.
Yeah, just imagine the psyche of these players, and it's not just Ohio State, Michigan, but that's the best example from this season, that if you get past that game and you win, you have worked so hard the entire season, off season, you lift weights, you watch film, you do all these hard things, and you know that's our target. It's Ohio State. It's Michigan. And you win that game, but in 5 years from now, you win that game and think, we may have to beat them in 3 weeks again.
I know, right? That's the thing. We have to play. We got to do this all again. Yeah. Well, that's all. What? Okay. Well, you have your predictions on Patreon, don't you? So you're not gonna give a prediction.
Should I let one out? Should I let one go?
Yeah. I want to hear a score too.
Here we go. All right.
All right.
Michigan 27, Ohio State 34.
All right. That seems solid. For me, I gotta go with Michigan, 31-28. But sure. I'm expecting a good game. All right, see you.
I'm sorry, TriStar.
Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say? Sorry, I missed it.
I was just gonna say that this is how I view the two teams generally. I thought Ohio State entering this season was one of the 3 best teams in the country with one of the 3 best rosters with Alabama and Georgia. But I was less confident about Ohio State. I needed to see that they fixed the defense and the physicality up front on offense. And once I thought I saw that, specifically against Notre Dame and against Wisconsin, then I thought this team is 2 touchdowns better than Michigan. Michigan's still a really good team, but I believe this team's about 2 touchdowns better. But as the season progressed and we saw Iowa and we saw Penn State, I went through about 3 weeks there where I thought it's going to pain me to do this, but I'm going to pick Michigan to win this game. But when it comes right down to it, I am concerned about Michigan's injuries. Ohio State's had injuries, obviously, in the running back room, but they've had injuries in the secondary, but they've had time to fix them and move people around and get other people ready. So I'm concerned about the Michigan injuries. And I also believe that Ohio State's flat out talent is still decidedly better than Michigan. And we are supposed to have like 52 and sunny tomorrow. And that's stupid to bring that up. And I never thought I would bring that up, breaking down Ohio State and Michigan, but it does matter.
Yeah, and for sure, especially with the injuries of Michigan, the depth is going to play a large role. And Ohio State, I mean, they just got 5-star after 5-star. So, I mean, I'm hoping. I'm just hoping as a Michigan fan that they can pull it off.
I'm also fascinated because I believe Michigan has a better defense than Ohio State. If you look at the metrics and the stats and the advanced stats, they're really close. But I believe Michigan, if you just watch them play down after down after down, they're more disciplined. They're airtight. They're just more disciplined, and they are a better defense and more consistent play to play. But Ohio State has game wreckers on its defense that show up a few times a game and bat passes in the air that get intercepted and strip sack
Yeah.
quarterbacks, all that.
JT Tumolo. That game against Penn State was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we saw it the
And like
last two
Zach
days of the Maryland game. Zach Harrison, the last two games.
Harrison, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Off the edge and sack and then strip sack touchdown.
Sure. Yeah, you guys got very, very talented roster, so we'll see. All right.
Absolutely. It should be something else.
Well, good night.
All right, TriStar. We appreciate it. Good night. Dan Rutherford. I enjoy this comment right here. Dan, I hope you're still watching, and I apologize to anybody that has sent super chats and then I get to them like 20 minutes later. But I do get to them, and thank you for that. Keep this in mind. Have you ever gone past some of these crazy stations or channels, I should say, on YouTube? Like I can think of one. It's more of a political kind of, and the chat's just scrolling because they've got like 20,000 people watching, and the super chats are coming in there just going, they're just lighting up like a pinball machine, and they don't read any super chats. They just come in. So at least we still read all the super chats, and that will be my vow for the future. When we get 20,000 people in here and the super chats are coming in like a pinball machine, I will have a special segment each week. I will read off all the super chats and answer them. All right. Dan Rutherford says, Georgia has a pretty pitiful graduation success rate for its football players, 59%. Let's add that to the college football rankings. This is what I love about this statement right here. If we could go back in time, if we could reverse time and go back to, let's say, 1950, college athlete, student athlete, I would have absolutely no issue with integrating that into the formula, saying, okay, we want to play a playoff at the end of the year. We want to do what the NFL is doing with the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears of the Western Conference. I was looking at this just the other day because I'm a nerd when it comes to stuff like this. And I've known this for a long, long time, but something that came across my video trafficking on YouTube brought this up. The Baltimore Colts of 1965, who went 11-1 and didn't make the playoffs. Can you imagine? They didn't make the NFL playoffs at 11-1. They lost a tiebreaker, 11-1 and 11-2. Anyway, they lost a tie. They tied the Green Bay Packers and they missed out on the playoffs. Anyway, fascinating stuff. I love this kind of stuff. So anyway, the powers that be in college football 70 years ago would look at this, they probably would have included something like this to say, we want to award the best teams in the country that are also succeeding academically. This has gotten way out of hand. All of this is just completely out of control. The one good thing about it for me personally is I wouldn't be able to run a business and support myself and others if college football wasn't as big a business as it is. But it's not really a good thing. We should have a society where young men go to college and they play athletics, in this case, football, and they live a balanced life where they just practice for 90 minutes a day or 2 hours, lift some weights, whatever. And it's very limited. And otherwise they're working in the community in addition to doing their homework, and they're studying for tests and going to class and all of that. And they play a football game, and however many people want to show up and watch it. And the NFL's there and they scout these guys and then they draft them and they become professionals then. That's the way it was supposed to work. And that's the way it kind of did at some point. But obviously it got popular. And anytime something gets popular and money's added to it, then it changes everything. Money changes everything, as Cyndi Lauper once said. And so money's an amplifier. Somebody also once said that money is an amplifier. There it is. Chad, thank you so much for the super chat. The best wins for the SEC are Oregon, Utah, Cincinnati, Texas, Pitt, BYU, Arizona, Miami, Memphis, Georgia Tech. Yep, think you got them all. For the Big Ten, it would be Notre Dame, Auburn, Boston College, Ohio, Buffalo, Virginia, SMU. Don't know why you included those two, but that's fine. Toledo, Wyoming, and UConn. I think you went for, anyway, whatever you did there, I got it. Yeah, the Big Ten. The Big Ten has defeated one really good team and really one, yeah. The SEC has defeated three really good teams and then like three or four kind of capable teams. Thank you for that, chat. And I believe that should do it. Mark says, who beat Washington? The Washington Huskies lost to Arizona State and UCLA. Washington having quite a year, right? They were 4-8 last year under, can't think of the guy, the defensive coordinator. Oh my word, Jimmy Lake. And Kalen DeBoer doing a phenomenal job. But they did lose to a bad Arizona State team, and they lost to UCLA, a game in which they were dominated for the most part in that game. Then they made a huge comeback. They came up short. And, of course, Washington has really good wins against Oregon and against Oregon State. And out of conference, their win, we thought at the time, was meaningful against Michigan State. But, yeah, Michigan State's pretty bad. All right, folks, I guess we will wrap it up from here. Nobody else is on the line. We appreciate everybody being here. We got 2 hours in the books. We will be back. So this is the deal. For as much as I would like to do an Ohio State, Michigan pregame show, I have previewed this game to death. If you look at the Ohio State channel and the Michigan channel and the main channel, I have hit this matchup as much as you can imagine. So I think I'll spare myself and I'll just enjoy myself tomorrow morning, and we won't do a pregame show. Maybe that's in our future, to do a Saturday morning kickoff show. But I'm going to be here at halftime. And of course, we're not ignoring the other games. I'm going to be watching Clemson, South Carolina, and the other noon games. Let's pull the games up here real quick. Let's do that. Always like to check out the schedule and size this up. Let's give it a look here. So we've got at noon, we've got Georgia hosting Georgia Tech. That's on ESPN at noon. I pity the broadcasting team that has to call that game and try to, what are they going to be talking about like mid-second quarter on? I don't know. Michigan, Ohio State, I think a few people may tune into that game. All right, my second and third screens will go to South Carolina, Clemson. It's intriguing considering what South Carolina showed us last week and what Clemson has shown us all year. I know the Clemson team that's going to show up because they've shown up every game this season. It's been the same Clemson team that shows up for every game. Tremendous defensively, limited on offense. Will Shipley on offense. DJ's better than he was last year, but he's not nearly as good as he was the 2 games against Notre Dame and BC his first year. So Clemson's a legit top 10 team in the country. South Carolina played out of their minds last weekend at home, but otherwise they've been a pretty marginal team. So can South Carolina, can they be that team again in Death Valley on the road? Clemson hasn't lost at home, I don't believe, since the Pitt game of 2016. Uncle Rico did not like my use of the word tremendous. I don't know where that was. I said that at some point. All right. West Virginia, Oklahoma State. I have no use for that game. Obviously, if it was the only game on TV, I would watch it. I would watch anything if it was the only college football game. Rutgers and Maryland on the BTN network. And then after we go through the schedule, I'd like to go through who can become bowl eligible. All right, let's look at these other games because I can usually only watch 2 games at the same time. And at noon, fortunately, I think Ohio State and Michigan basically scared off all the networks because we usually have like 6 really good games at noon. But tomorrow it's basically South Carolina Clemson is the only watchable game outside of the game. Then at 3:30, interesting ESPN or SEC network decision to go with a 3 o'clock game. So they must not have a noon game. So Louisville, Kentucky. So look at what the SEC, look at the TV strategy here, getting the jump on the 3:30 games to jump in with a 3 o'clock game, get people hooked to keep them there. So at 3:30, the best game is Oregon State. That is the best game. I will give Alabama and Auburn for tradition's sake, and because it is one of the great rivalries in college football, I will give it a shot first and foremost. But those are going to be the 2 games that I'm going to be locked on at 3:30. Although Purdue now is playing for the Big Ten Western Division title against Indiana. And I know that basically 90% of you could care less, but I do. Purdue, Indiana, Duke and Wake Forest. Duke is a really good team. They're a good team. They've had a tremendous season. I love this game. There, I said tremendous again. Wake and Duke. I really like that matchup. I'm probably, what I'll do? I'll DVR that. I DVR about 17 games on Saturday, and that will be one of them. And then I'll probably not get around to watch it. But so that's the strategy at 3:30. The 3:30 window has been weak this season, but tomorrow, solid. Oregon State, the best matchup. Alabama, Auburn, from a traditional standpoint, is obviously the game to watch. Louisville, Kentucky's a fair matchup. That should be an even matchup, should be a close game. Wisconsin, Minnesota for really nothing. I don't believe Minnesota can win the West. They can't. So unfortunately, that doesn't mean anything. Minnesota's trying to finish 9-3. Purdue, again, Big Ten Western Division champs. If they win at Bloomington, Wake and Duke's a really good game. I would watch 7 of those games. I like all those games. Then we go down to 4 o'clock on Fox, of course, TCU. This is an important game because Iowa State could pull off the upset and TCU's screwed. But as long as they hold serve, they're only a 10-point favorite. So that's a big game. Michigan State, Penn State. Michigan State needs to win to become bowl eligible. Penn State needs a win to get to 10 and be most likely a New Year's 6 candidate. Utah has a number of things that could happen if Oregon State defeats Oregon, in which they can win, still get to they need a lot to happen to get to the Pac-12 championship game. I believe they need Washington to lose and Oregon to lose. I think that will do that for them. 7 at night. Do not discount the possibility, I know this sounds ridiculous, that Texas A&M could beat LSU. And then maybe we get a 3-loss SEC champion that doesn't make the playoff. Notre Dame, USC, that's my number 1 game there at 7:30 prime time. That's going to be phenomenal. Can't wait to watch USC, Notre Dame. Tennessee, Vandy, I'm a bit interested in because of the Hendon Hooker injury and that Vandy could pull off a 3rd consecutive miraculous upset. Kansas State's big. If Kansas State wins, they go to the Big 12 championship game. If they lose, Texas to the Big 12 championship game. And there you see Washington State, with the Huskies still holding out hopes that Oregon loses and they can get to the Pac-12 championship game. All right. And unfortunately, because of the tragedy, no Virginia Tech game this year. I'll only say one thing about that situation because I totally respect that decision. I hope that the Virginia players were asked. I hope that their opinions factored into that decision. That's what I hope. So I totally respect the decision and understand that the real life tragedy is so much more important than playing a football game. But I hope that the Virginia players were that their opinions were factored in. All right, these are the teams that will become bowl eligible with a win. This is how much bowl eligibility is riding on the line on Saturday. We've got nobody in the American Conference. In the ACC, we've got Miami, 5-6, playing Pitt. Miami needs to win to make it to a bowl game, unless there are going to be a certain possibility of a certain amount of 5 and 7 teams based on academic standards that could reach a bowl game. So let's take that out of play. To get to a bowl game legitimately would be Miami has to defeat Pitt. This is laughable, but Georgia Tech has to beat Georgia to get to a bowl game. In the Big 12, we have no such case like that. In the Big 10, we simply have Michigan State at 5-6. They've got to pull an upset off on the road against Penn State. In Conference USA, you've got FAU, Rice, and UAB, and UTEP. You've got, man, if you are the commissioner of the Conference USA or have any connection with Conference USA, from a money standpoint, you are pulling for your 4 teams. Whoever they're playing, doesn't matter. You want all 4 of them to win. You want to take up all the bowl slots that you can and make money. And just the prestige and the notoriety and the publicity and the exposure that comes with playing in bowl games. So Conference USA, big day for Conference USA with Rice, UAB, UTEP, and FAU playing for bowl slots. And maybe some of them are playing each other. I don't know. We're not going to look into that. We also have in the MAC, Buffalo's 5-5. Wonder if they had a game canceled. They must have. We have nobody else at 5-6 in the MAC. Mountain West, Utah State has made it at 6-6. They lost to Boise, so they had already made a bowl appearance. We've got no bowl eligibility on the line in the Mountain West. In the Pac-12, no bowl eligibility is on the line. In the SEC, of course, Vandy against Tennessee, and Auburn can go to a bowl game if they defeat Alabama. In the Sun Belt, we've got Georgia Southern at 5-6, Southern Miss at 5-6, and also Louisiana at 5-6. So we've got 3 teams in the Sun Belt. And similarly to Conference USA, if I'm the Sun Belt commissioner, I am hoping and pleading, but I certainly wouldn't fix the games, but want those 5 and 6 teams to reach a bowl game so my conference can make more money. All right, folks, I'm going to be here at halftime of Ohio State, Michigan, main channel, Michigan channel, Ohio State channel. We will have post game, not with me. I want to kind of be out of the way. I've done that like the last 3 or 4 games, Ohio State, Michigan. I've been on here live after the game, but now we've got Ohio State post game on the Ohio State channel. We've got Michigan post game on the Michigan channel. So I don't want to get in the way of what they're doing. But I'll be here at halftime, and I'm going to post as many videos and analysis throughout the day as possible. And then I will be back here after the primetime games, most notably Notre Dame, USC, to take your calls here at the Voice of College Football. Check out the video we posted a couple hours ago on Lane Kiffin to Auburn. Good discussion with our folks from E2C Network on Lane Kiffin to Auburn. And if you want a last minute preview on any of this stuff, go to any of the channels, because we previewed Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina, Clemson, Florida, Florida State. Well, they just played, didn't they? Don't need to watch that preview. And who knows who else? Oregon, Oregon State. We did a bunch of the other ones. All right. USC, Notre Dame, of course. All right, folks. Good to see you. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you so much for all your support. Remember the Amazon link in the description section. Put it somewhere where you will not forget it when you do your Christmas shopping. Enjoy the football. It should be awesome. We'll see you in a few hours. We always honor the super chats. Ben, thank you so much for that. That is so much appreciated. And Ben, thank you for your good humor and your good-naturedness in arguing whatever we argued about the SEC and everybody else. So thank you for that. Thank you for not taking offense and all of that. I appreciate that. You don't have to say this aloud, Mark, but thanks, Ben.